Okay, welcome everyone to the October 16th, 2024 Vallecitos Water District Public Board Meeting. Before we begin, I would like to announce that members of the public may watch the meeting live via computer or smart device by going to the district's website and clicking on the Watch Live icon. However, they will not be able to participate in the meeting remotely. Members of the public may also listen to the meeting live on their phone by dialing 888-788-0099 toll-free or 877-853-5247, also toll-free. When prompted, enter the meeting ID and passcode displayed on the district's website. Director Hernandez, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be happy to. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up, we have attendance. Directors, please indicate your attendance. And we are all here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Any additions to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Pinnock. There is a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Do we have any discussion of that? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, and it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Do we have any public speakers?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Director Elithar. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Pinnock. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, thank you. Consent items have passed. Moving on to action items. The first agenda item is 2.1, project acceptance for Las Posas Waterline Replacement Project. I believe we have a presentation.
Yes, ma'am. So while they get queued up, this is the Las Posas Project waterline replacement. I believe some of the board members were lucky enough to go out there and see the slip lining that happened. Both District Engineer Hubbard and our Senior Engineer Morgan will be presenting on this item. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, General Manager Gumpel. The existing Las Posas waterline is shown in the figure before you as a subject of today's project acceptance. The existing 10-inch diameter Las Posas waterline is located in the district's 855 pressure zone. It serves local businesses and residents in the area, and it undercrosses this shaded yellow existing underground box culvert, which conveys stormwater from north to south. And it's approximately 15 feet below grade to get under the culvert, and as you can see, it's located between Linda Vista Drive and Stone Drive. This line was originally installed in 1981. It's a 10-inch diameter asbestos cement pipeline. However, the very bottom section of the undercrossing is legacy older than 1981 ductile iron pipe. There are a total of 4 vertical 45-degree bends to change the vertical alignment to get under the culvert. And in December 2016 now, some time ago, district staff responded to a break right at the concrete culvert, concrete wall, which is located right here in the picture. Staff, construction crews responded and utilized their equipment to the greatest extent possible to get down to 15 feet below grade. Additionally, they had to fight groundwater infiltration and dewater that groundwater. They were actually out there for 2 full days and nights in order to get this repair clamp installed. And this repair clamp is really just a temporary type of repair. It's not intended to be a permanent, long-term repair. So this project really got brought about to find a permanent repair solution for this water line. We had actually budgeted for this replacement project all the way back in fiscal year 17-18. But due to prioritizing other project objectives and capital, this project was delayed. In July of 2021, the board authorized the general manager to enter into a professional services agreement with NV5 to provide engineering design services and start work on the design of this permanent repair. The location of the pipeline repair and associated impacts really make traditional open trench replacement of this water line cost prohibitive, very difficult to do, number one, and very costly if we were to attempt it. So staff and NV5 really investigated trenchless technologies to arrive at a solution. It was a pressure-rated slip liner, commonly known as Primus liner. It's applicable for pressurized potable water transmission inside of an existing host pipeline. It worked out nicely because there's no service connections off this line. If there were service connections, that would actually eliminate the Primus line technology. So this was a good trial to use, and so in March of 2024, we received two bids from local contractors, and the board authorized the award to Advantage Reline in March for $288,136. Staff self-performed project management, construction management, and inspection services during construction. The contractor was issued a notice to proceed in July, and they completed work on September 24th. The project had one change order for some additional liner length because we ended up moving the access pits to accommodate the vertical profile, basically to intercept the pipe at the most shallow location possible. And that change order resulted in an increase to the contract of $8,736, or 3% of the original contract total. The fiscal impact is shown on page 87 of your board packet. And in total, the original project budget was $482,000 per the fiscal year 24-25 budget. And the fiscal impact, including NV5 professional services agreements, the construction agreement, staff time, and staff overhead, totals $453,188, which leaves a surplus of roughly $30,000. This project achieved, it directly supports the district's strategic plan, specifically Strategic Focus Area 1, infrastructure integrity. Without this trenchless rehabilitation improvement, the pipeline would be at risk of failure every day that clamp was in service. However, this project extends the asset life by 50 years, which is great news. And this just adds to the overall integrity of the district's potable water system in the area. Some photos before you, just kind of showing the work that was required, beginning with in-house construction crews replacing an existing 12-inch valve. This was required to achieve isolation on the line, to stop water from entering the project pipeline when we cut it open. So this was actually done ahead of the Advantage Reline work. And then some photos showing the work inside the pipe. We have to perform a video inspection to confirm the integrity inside the hose pipe before the folded liner is actually pulled through and inflated into the hose pipe. There were two access pits. You probably drove by them on Las Posas Road. Some of you came out to visit. That was great. The liner was inflated with air to achieve its shape inside the pipe once inserted. And then fittings and connections between the liner and the adjoining AC pipe were installed, which is shown here on the bottom right with the flanged connections there. It's with this, the staff recommends project acceptance and authorizing the general manager to file a notice of completion and release retention of funds to the contractor following a 60-day notice period. This is provided no claims are filed in conformance with the contract documents. And I can take any questions you might have.
Thank you for that presentation. Do we have any public speakers for this? I forgot to ask before the presentation. Thank you. Okay, what questions do my colleagues have? Yes.
Whoops. Thank you. I'd just like to thank Allison, Jason, Ryan for having Director Pennick and I out at the site, and we got to witness this awesome technology in use. And The professionalism displayed by the contractor, Vantage Reline, was exceptional, and it was great being able to witness this money-saving technology firsthand. And I encourage the district to consider its use in the future. And a question that I had got is that the relining for use in potable drinking water is a somewhat new concept. So just for the benefit of the public, can you just share how this is rated and assure the public that it is safe for drinking water?
Yes. First of all, thank you for your comments, and I'd also like to include kudos to our inspections department, who was on site every day and actually dealing with some early headaches in the field to accommodate the contractor.
Thank you to them as well.
And as far as the suitability of the Primus liner for drinking water, it is NSF 61 rated, which is a standard for drinking water. Anything that drinking water might come into contact with inside the pipe or in transmission to eventually the end user should only touch NSF certified products. This Primus liner is NSF certified and therefore safe for potable pressurized drinking water standards.
Thank you for addressing that.
Thank you.
Okay, what other questions? So thank you for coming in under budget. It sounds like you came in under budget by a significant amount that can be used, in other places. So thank you for that and for the work. You mentioned at the top, I heard the word asbestos, and I'm wondering, can you please explain, because, if a member of the public is watching our video and they hear the word asbestos, they might think that maybe our pipes are lined with asbestos. And I want to make sure that we can assure the public that our pipes are safe. Mm-hmm. So can you please explain the context around your mentioning of the word asbestos?
Asbestos cement pipe is a common pipeline material. It was used heavily pre-1990s or in the 90s and before that. It is safe for drinking water conveyance. Our ratepayers don't have to fear anything with asbestos being in the water or anything like that. Currently, the standards are new potable water pipeline is actually C900 PVC. It's a different material. It's a plastic pipe. But these pipelines that are currently in service are not a hazard for anybody, and it's quite commonplace for other water agencies and cities in the county to also have these materials in their systems.
Great, thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Any other questions?
Just a comment, just echo Director Brissett's comments. Thank you so much.
Good job, under budget.
Thank you.
Good product, quick, nice, simple, so appreciate it.
I pass that along to the whole team. This was a really a good one to be a part of, and since it was so long on the books, it was really nice to get it done finally. So.
And that clamp lasted 8 years.
8
That's
years.
pretty good.
Yeah. Shout out to construction.
Good job.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, may I have a motion to approve to accept the Las Posas waterline replacement project and authorize the fund release?
Motion to accept.
Okay, motion by Director Grosset. May I have a second?
Second?
Okay, thank you, Vice President Pinnock. Motion and second. Any other comments or discussion points? Okay, please vote.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to action item 2.2, report on meetings related to Hotel Leora development. I believe we have a presentation.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So at the last board meeting, the board voted to provide two items. One is both of them on today's agenda, but one specifically, item 2.2, is a report on basically Hotel Leora, which is the hotel developer that the district staff had meetings with. This report that's in your board packet is basically a history of their touch points with the district, including the meeting that took place in June. With that, I'm going to hand it over to District Engineer Hubbard to give a brief update, to go over the different touch points that we've been involved with this hotel project, either directly with the current developer and really even started with a previous developer.
All right, thank you, General Manager Campello. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. As the General Manager said, this is an informational item only, and it is to discuss the report on the meeting that was related to the hotel development project, and this was initiated at the September 18th board meeting as directed by the board to investigate and report on this meeting and regarding the unauthorized installation of a flow meter. I've asked Senior Engineer Lopez to join me. She's had a lot of interaction and has a lot of the history with the developer, so if there's any questions about that history, she can help correct any mistakes I make. I just want to point out in the exhibit that the property we're talking about is over here. It's the purple shaded parcels. There's 5 parcels, and that's where the proposed hotel is located. It's located off of Montiel Road, east of Nordell Drive, or Nordell Road, and north of the 78. So this property is currently owned by San Marcos Hospitality LLC. I'm going to refer to them as the hotel group through this presentation, just for ease. And they own these 5 vacant lots. The previous owner was working with the district, and back in 2016, they reached out. They had a hotel development that they were planning for this property. The district prepared a water and sewer study. This is a study that we put together for all developers to really identify the impacts of their development above and beyond the adopted land use for those particular parcels. And so that study was developed back in 2016, and it did identify SP9, a sewer improvement, which you can see here. It begins just south of the NCTD tracks, and it extends all the way along this yellow line through the Nordell Shopping Center. And that was the original project that was identified in 2016 as a result of the hotel improvements. So moving forward in 2019, the district moved forward with a capital project to replace the Montiel lift station, which is just located in the corner adjacent to the hotel property, which is indicated there in the red circle. So as part of that project, we're going to replace the lift station, which was originally built in 1985. It was way past the end of its service life, and so had been on our schedule. And then as part of that project, we were also going to replace the sewer force main, which you can see there in the red line. As part of that design phase in 2019, the district did make a decision to extend that force main, which is the yellow line, through the Nordell Shopping Center. That was a financial and operational decision as a benefit to the district because that particular gravity line is very deep, very difficult. It's through a shopping center, a lot of customer impacts. And so the decision was to extend that force main, put it in much shallower, and use a material that was much more going to be conducive to the operation of the force main. So that was done in 2019. At least those were the decisions that were made at that time. And because of those decisions, the scope of SP9 was significantly reduced, and that's why in the exhibit you see the limits of SP9 just being this area here, which is about a little over 1,000 feet of sewer that needed to be upsized. So fast forward to 2021, the hotel group had now purchased that property and did reach out to staff because they had proposed a different hotel, and that triggered a new water sewer study. That study identified SP9 again as an off-site improvement. Staff did reach out and let the hotel group know that that SP9, while it was on our master plan identified, it was not in our CIP schedule, so we hadn't budgeted this particular project. But also let them know that we were moving forward with the lift station replacement project, and because of the amount of sewer that was going to be generated as part of their hotel, they couldn't actually have occupancy until the district had replaced the sewer lift station, which we were working on. But at that point, it was still in design, right? So in October of 2022, the board may recall we had some interactions with the hotel group. We were trying to acquire easements for the construction of the lift station. We were going through an eminent domain process. Thankfully, we were able to come to an equitable solution, so we never actually went down the eminent domain, and that's always what we're trying to do. So we did go through that. We did acquire the easements so that we can move forward with the construction. However, it did cause a delay in the design and eventually bidding out of that project. So that did slow the process down. but that was a touch point with the hotel group I wanted to point out. In August of 2023, the hotel group reached out again to Elizabeth and her group. They had a revised hotel project. I think it went from 5 stories to 6 stories to the latest one in August 2023, which is a 4-story project. And that triggered, again, another water sewer study, which again identified SP9. It also identified SP25, which is a project identified in our master plan, however, not in our CIP schedule.
So, I'm sorry, this is the 3rd revision?
Yes, there's been 3
Okay.
water sewer studies related to this particular project, 2 with the current owner.
Who pays for those water sewer studies?
The developer pays 100% of all interactions and studies through a deposit, and then staff charges against that deposit.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in August of 2023, SP9 was identified, SP25 was identified. SP25 is not shown on this exhibit. It's much farther downstream, and it's about 800 feet of 18-inch sewer that needs to be upsized through the Twin Oaks Valley Park residential community. So, but a few months later, in October 2023, another developer came in. They had a different project, an adjacent project in the area of SP25, and they have a water sewer study as well as part of their project, and it identified SP25. That developer decided to take that project on, and that then removed SP25 from the obligation of the hotel group. And then in October of 2024, this year, the hotel group reached out to staff. They were interested in paying an in lieu fee to the district instead of building SP25. Basically, hey, we're gonna give the district money for the district to build the project instead of us. However, again, we didn't have that. We didn't have SP9 budgeted. And you recall in January, of course, we're running into the budget cycle, and you're very well aware we had bigger priorities with the CCT expansion, the Montiel lift station, the Twin Oaks sewer improvement project, and we really just didn't have the budget or capacity to move this project onto the schedule yet. It wasn't.
Did you mean October 2023? You said 24. Just, yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry, apologize.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and sorry, I meant this year was when the developer reached out to, the hotel group reached out to pay the in lieu fee. Yeah, sorry. A lot of history, a lot of touch points. So at that time in January of 2024, we did let the hotel group know that that wasn't an option to pay that fee because of the issues with capacity, the issues with the budget, and also the fact that that existing sewer was operating at capacity. So for their project to move forward, they really needed to actually make the improvements because their project is generating 600 times more sewer than what the adopted land use is for those 5 parcels. So it really became also just a capacity issue on the existing system. So after that, in March of 2024, the hotel group did request a meeting with our attorneys and their attorneys to further discuss the process for SP9. So district staff, along with Mr. Gilpin, met with the hotel group and their attorney to discuss specifically SP9 and what options were available to them. And we have consistently reiterated that your option is to either build SP9 as a condition of your project for off-site improvements or wait till the district gets to it. And we'll eventually get to it, but there was a timing issue, right? So that then led to the meeting, which is in question, which is the question for the board. And that meeting was held on June 17th of this year. And that meeting was with the general manager, myself, Director Hernandez, Director Grosset, City Councilman Sinella, the hotel group, the owner, I think his son, as well as they had 3 engineering representatives as part of their team. And so that meeting was requested, and it resolved specifically around SP9. At that meeting, the hotel group's engineering representative informed us that they had installed a temporary sewer flow meter below SP9 to measure the sewer flow in the system. The general manager questioned whether they had coordinated with staff. They affirmed that they did. However, their affirmation was not confident enough, and so both the general manager and myself had questions afterwards. But moving on from that declaration by their team, they then presented their plan, which was based on the sewer data that they had collected. They had determined, yes, the sewer system was at capacity, and that system surcharges, which just means it goes above our design criteria, and their plan was to surcharge it just a little bit more, which is not something that we allow. And sort of affirmed that the message that we had been telling them was correct, that the system was at capacity. It can't handle additional capacity. And again, their proposed development was going to generate over 14,000 gallons of sewer per day, which is 600 times greater than what the adopted land use by the city was allowing. So based on that, staff, myself and the general manager, gave them the options, which were, again, build SP9 or wait till we can build it. And both Director Hernandez and Grosset supported that decision. We then moved on to what other options could be available, and we basically were just, brainstorming ideas, and some additional ideas that were discussed at that meeting was that the hotel group could look at a direct connection to the city of Escondido sewer system, which would involve tunneling underneath the freeway, private easements, and then connecting over in Mission Road. That came up because the district has looked at that option for its own self. We had chased this option down back in 2017, I believe. It didn't pan out in coordination with the city, but we shared that report with them, and if you told the hotel group, if you want to pursue that, by all means, that is an option. We also discussed an option where they could retain the sewer on site and then discharge off-peak during the evenings. However, the general manager did express that there was logistically some concerns, and that would really be at the decision of the city of San Marcos, because we don't have jurisdiction on site with private sewer systems. So that's not something that we can approve or disapprove, but that's an option that they could pursue. And that was the conclusion of that meeting. That's how it ended, was here's your options. You got 4 options. Retain it on site, find an Escondido connection, build it yourself, or wait for us. And those were the options that were presented to the hotel group. So following that meeting, there were additional coordination meetings. The general manager did meet with the city of San Marcos and the hotel group to discuss the particular option for retention on site. City of San Marcos rejected that option, which is what we expected, but again, the hotel group had to pursue that. And then there was another coordination meeting between the general manager and the city of Escondido to talk about that option. The hotel group was not part of that coordination meeting, but the city of Escondido expressed that they were not supportive of that option, but I don't believe there's been a formal rejection of that option. So that's still in play. However, from the district's perspective, there are significant obstacles financially, logistically, and from an agreement standpoint between the city and us that would prevent that option.
Is that capacity or cost concern mainly?
I think it's a cost concern.
Cost factor.
And just the timing, as you would imagine, tunneling under the freeway.
Right.
And then they have to get private easements through private property to then get into the city right away.
So it's truly a cost factor,
Yeah,
not
it can be
capacity.
done. We've proved through our
just doesn't pan
study
out.
that it can be done. It would be the most expensive sewer ladder in the history of sewer laterals.
For City Escondido, there's a capacity issue or upgrade. There's also a payment issue, and then there's also logistics between the city of Escondido and Vallecitos Water District on sewer fee collection and sewer fee payment. So in other words, the city of Escondido wants an agreement on anything like that where whatever they charge, Vallecitos would be responsible for, even if it far exceeds our normal fees. And that's something that would be an issue for us, an issue based on 218. We cannot subsidize one user by putting those fees on other users. So those are kind of non-starters, and those were expressed in the meeting with them as logistics, not in detail. And then further verified when I had a meeting with City Escondido's general manager.
Gotcha.
Or
And this
utility
project
manager.
is in the city of Escondido.
The city is in the city of San Marcos.
It is the city.
Yeah, so then that's a whole different logistics issue. City of Escondido is really not interested because they won't get any of the benefit from this project unless they were able to de-annex from San Marcos and annex into the city. And the city of San Marcos is not interested in de-annexing this and losing the potential tax benefit.
Right. Thank you.
So those coordination meetings occurred after the June 17th meeting. And then circling back to the issue that came up in the meeting as far as whether the hotel group had coordinated with staff on the installation of the flow meter. And I know that's sort of the focus of this particular item. So staff did get around to, and we were busy, but we did get around to investigating further and found out that no, those statements were untrue, that they hadn't coordinated with staff. So staff did issue a cease and desist letter on August 9th to the installation firm US3 who had installed that equipment and let them know, put them on notice that this was a serious issue, that they're not supposed to be accessing the sewer system without coordination with staff. The intent was to send a very strong message, not only to the installation firm, but also to the hotel group and their engineering representatives, that this is not how we do business, this is not how you coordinate with the Vallecitos Water District, because there is a potential for inaccurate data to be collected. You can cause damage to the system. So we sent a very strong message. However, there was no damage to our system. We verified that. And truth be told, the risk is very low. So it is a low risk issue. In the letter we sent, it did mention potential legal actions, and because of that, the board did request a special closed meeting on August 15th, where this information was conveyed to the board. And since then, staff considers this meeting, this matter closed as far as with US3. They did express and apologize and reveal that this was just a breakdown of communication on their end. I can just tell you that just this week, we've been coordinating with US3 on installation of sewer flow meters for another developer on another project. So we're back on the right path, and that's what we wanted. That was really our goal with communicating with them, is get back into the proper protocols for doing this kind of work. So, so that's good news. Following that closed session meeting, we did reach out to the hotel group a couple times to coordinate again how we were going to move forward with SP9, and they were looking for some additional information from us. So we did let them know that in the event, or if they want to move forward and build SP9, there is a reimbursement component which is available to all developers if it's applicable for their particular project, and that's per policy, Ordinance 225. And so we did convey that information to the hotel group, and we have not heard a response. Fiscal impact, as you asked, Director, is that all costs related to coordinating with the developer and doing studies is paid against a deposit which they submit. However, they currently do have a negative balance of over $6,600. We have reached out this month and asked them to bring that balance up to current with an additional deposit should they move forward. So, and that's certainly up to them whether they want to move forward with the project. With that, again, this information, this item is for information only, and I can answer any questions you have about the history or the details of the meeting or items thereafter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work looking into the matter and the thorough timeline. I'd just like to applaud staff for coming up with the two creative solutions that were possible solutions, and it sounds like maybe now there's a third, because it sounds like staff had been saying over and over again, here are the options, every meeting, here are the options, and then there were two new options, including the retention. So that was staff's idea, I guess?
Staff had discussed this. It was actually Director Grosset who brought up those ideas because he had talked with staff about them.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you for bringing those up and for the thorough timeline. What comments do my colleagues have?
If I may. Just two things, clarification on that timeline. The cease and desist letter was given to the board before the closed meeting was announced. And with that, the email associated with it indicated that satisfactory result had been with the contractor that you had described. The other thing that's important of that is that Director Hernandez and I had no knowledge of that sewer break. So it's important to, or whatever you call their infraction. So just clarifying.
Yes, you are correct. The first time any of the directors saw the information in that letter was when we sent it out at that time.
Okay, other comments?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's been the developer's main resistance to doing the SP9 improvements?
I can only think it's cost.
I mean, whether they do it or we did it, it would still be at their cost, right?
No, well, if we did it, it would be budgeted. It would come out of our replacement and expansion funds, which developers pay in through their sewer cap fees.
Okay.
So
they're trying to get out of the cost of building.
that's what I would suspect, but that hasn't really been explicitly discussed. But
Okay.
yeah.
How many more meetings do we need for them to hear the same information, for us to draw the conclusion?
We've tried to be very consistent, but we've also tried to be
Sounds like it. Thank
come
you.
up with some ideas too, which is what came out of that meeting. Is trying to be creative and come up with some different ideas.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, this item was for information only, so thank you for presenting. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to agenda item 2.3, board policy regarding use of district resources. Do we have any public speakers?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
So this item, we don't have a attached policy, but as we're starting to, both General Counsel Gilpin and I started looking at the policy, there's a lot of different ways we go. There's a broad spectrum which can be considered. So instead of kind of doing a shotgun approach to a policy and having the board really kind of dissect it and debate it, it'd be nice to bring this item to the board for today, the reasons we're bringing it, to see if there's a consensus on a direction that the board wants to see as far as a policy. As regarding utilization of district resources with outside people and board members. So with that, this is more of a discussion item with no action tonight, and we're looking for direction to look towards a policy. General Counsel Gilpin did give me a draft policy, and I have started reviewing it, and there's a lot of good ideas in there. But before we bring it forward board, we'd like to get it a little bit more polished, to the point where we know that it's going in the general direction at the board's pleasure.
Yeah, as GM Compel mentioned, I think the idea was just to get some input from you all relative to kind of the issues you want included in the policies, and or whether you even want a policy. From a broad brush stroke, there's, I couched it in terms of use of district resources, i.e. by board members. So if you think about it, the policy would relate to when and how a individual board member would either request staff or someone from the district to attend outside meetings and or request information relative to items. Those are kind of the two big buckets in terms of staff time. If you think about just the request for information, it could be, you get questions from a constituent regarding some issue, and so do you want policies in place to how a board member should process that request for information? General best practices are that information be directed to the general manager, who then obtains the information instead of individual board members going directly to staff, because you can kind of see where that might head. So generally in the request for information, be complaints by constituents, complaints by employees where you want to get personnel information, requests from outside folks who are interested in the status of contracts and or work with the district. And then the other one is where you've got pending applications or permits in front of, in the engineering department or otherwise, where you know, that applicant may be coming to you to put pressure on you to get information as to the status of their project, et cetera. So that's kind of the request for information realm. The other realm that I think came into focus from this is the use of staff time, requests for staff to attend meetings outside the district relative to you know, a constituent or a developer or applicant's request to have the meeting. Again, best practices, all those from you should be directed to the general manager, since he's your only employee, and then he could deal with those. You know, the requests to attend meetings, I think you could imagine the buckets they fall into. It may be, hey, I want you to send out staff and make a presentation to constituents on some subject. It could be, you know, I've got this interest group, I want, you know, you to send staff along and make a presentation. Could be, as in this situation, a request from a developer or an applicant to attend meetings. And in terms of the policy, it's really, again, how you would want that process to work, i.e. my suggestion would be that any of those requests first be made to the general manager, and then how we handle the communication relative to when resources are used or meetings are held. And that kind of be the scope of a policy in this vein, if that's what you're interested in.
Whereas currently there is no policy.
Currently, there's no policy, you know, other than you should just go straight to the general manager, but yeah.
That is the practice, and that is what has been communicated to board members as far as I know. That's what's been communicated to me, yeah.
And that's correct, Madam President. So the current practice, and all board members follow this, is communication goes to the GM, and from there I may either communicate directly or assign staff to communicate back, and I'm usually, almost all the time, copied on it, and every now and then if I'm forgotten to be copied, the staff is really good about sending me their correspondence if they forgot to copy. So I always get a copy of any correspondence between staff. But 99.9% of the time, the communication originated through me. The request came to me to staff to communicate back to the board. The only time that doesn't happen is if there is a personal issue with human resources, and that is perfectly fine, because that is a personal issue, whether it be benefits or something else. And then only individual travel plans for coordination. Usually I'm informed by that through the executive secretary position, assistant position, but those things I get that information a little later. But as far as any request from the board, it's been followed by all board members where it goes through the general manager's office.
Question. Was there a specific issue that came up that prompted this discussion about a policy?
Well, the specific issue was what occurred relative to the meeting with the developer, how that occurred, and then I think the second aspect of it is how I don't know how to put this, communicating that meeting had occurred and what had occurred to the balance of the board, so that, I can't speak for you all, but the request for this policy was from the last meeting, and it's arising out of this situation.
I'm somewhat stymied because in my 14 years here, you know, there's been a number of meetings with developers and 2 or less board members, and I don't know that the requests have been so abusive as to promote it's, in my opinion, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And I don't know that the system is broken. I mean, does anyone else see that it's broken?
No, but I would just say, to me, it's not an abuse. I would just like to see some transparency on the results of these meetings. That's all I'm looking for. I'd just like to know what came out of these meetings. You know, was in the dark about it till after the fact. I was kind of neutral on whether we needed a formal policy, but listening to General Counsel, I'm interested in a lot of things you're saying that may be worthwhile having in a policy.
Well, and I would say it's a double-edged sword, right? Don't fix what isn't broken, and sometimes developing a policy in advance of the train wreck can be helpful, but I mean, I don't want to promote it either way. I do think, my deceased partner had a saying that, there's usually not bad intention, it's just bad communication. And so, I mean, that is, I think, a culprit relative to a lot of things. And sometimes trying to create a rule or policy just can have unintended consequences. But on the same side, it can, sometimes it can provide clarity and provide a process so that, if staff are asked to go and attend a meeting outside, that there's a process where that information of what occurred is reported back so that there is transparency for the whole, and the board is on the same footing regarding what happens during those meetings, but that's up to you all.
Okay, well, I don't want a policy then. I just want some transparency, that's all. In my opinion.
So at the beginning, I was sort of skeptical about a policy as well, because I think that, we can make a policy and it won't be all encompassing, and people, could go around it. They could find the loopholes. That's what people do. I agree with the transparency, and I think we can all agree, though, that there are some meetings that have different weights than others. If folks are meeting with people that legitimately will or have had business before the board, that's different than if, for example, I say, hey, General Manager, can you make a presentation to a community group about work that we're doing in the community to inform constituents? That's different. Those aren't equally weighted. The conflict of interest is not there in one case, but could be there in another case. I support transparency, and I feel like that's something that we should explore. We voted as a board to entertain whether or not we wanted a policy, and the vote was yes. So does that mean that you now don't want a policy?
I'm kind of neutral about it, I guess.
Did we vote for a policy?
Yes, at the last meeting, it was voted to consider a policy. There was no vote on an actual policy, just to create a policy for board consideration.
Yeah.
If it's at the board's pleasure, but if the main goal is transparency, whether it be through a policy or basically directed practice to the general manager, that anytime we have any meeting, no matter the weight scale, that there's a report out to the full board at the next board meeting, or if not convenient due to timing of board meetings, an email. This way, the board at a future meeting, through its comments, could always ask follow-up questions or ask for more details of this. In that case, the board would get information in a timely manner of anything that had both outside constituents, whether it be a developer, a consultant, or just a community group, which, unless there's a desire to kind of weight it, but there's a lot of different weights, and I agree there are a lot of different weights. Some of them will be very simple. It could be in a GM report. I made a presentation to a community group about this last week, or some of them may be more involved and be followed up by email. That could be done through policy. It could be done through direction from the board back to the general manager. It's really more up to the board's pleasure of what that is.
What other comments are there?
Well, I thank Council Gilpin for his input here, and I agree that, you know, there's usually no bad intentions, just bad communication, and it's certainly seems like that was the case here, and unfortunately, some of our reputations were attacked for it. I hope that isn't the case in the future, given we now know the full circumstances here, and I agree with GM Gumpel's suggestion of doing a report out on it, because even when there is a formalized committee and structure around this, you still sometimes don't get information. As a good example, the Hilltop Committee, which you rightfully were curious of, and now you're a part of, and I still haven't heard anything on that committee. So doubling down on transparency is always a good idea, and I'm all for it.
We have minutes from the Hilltop meeting, don't we?
No, ad hoc committees don't have meetings. We did take general notes on action items, but they're not formal meeting and they're not posted. However, at the pleasure of the board, for the committee members, you're welcome to report out on it during a normal committee and, no, during this board meeting, actually during the
Yeah,
normal
that's-
director's report.
That's today. We'll have a report because we haven't met for 3 or 4 months, and we just had a meeting. So we will have a report today on that, and it'll be up to speed. With that, I would make a motion to dismiss with any more work being done on policy for this particular item.
Is that the appropriate?
Well, I think your direction last time was to come back to discuss. If you don't want us to pursue that policy, development of a policy to bring it back, then just give us that direction. And we'll cease that effort if that's the consensus of the board, which.
Okay, can I have your motion again, please?
So there's no motion, really, it's just discussion, right?
Well,
Well,
we're looking for second or discussion, or did a
So
second.
I give my 2 cents. To quote a colleague of mine, Director Ellendorf, I don't want a policy, I just want transparency as well.
So what does that look like?
Pretty much doing what we've been
Pretty much
doing.
we're doing, except we'll now make sure that we get
Well,
reports on
It's
any
not
meeting.
what we have been doing, because we wouldn't be in this
99% of the time.
situation
Well,
if that was what we have been doing.
Well, except the reporting portion, which we will now do, because in the time just that you guys have been on the board, I don't think we've had this issue come up. So now we know what to do if this issue comes out, to make sure there's a report to the board that it actually happened. I don't think there was anything done wrong. It was not a violation of the Brown Act. We meet with constituents and developers all the time. It just, this time, it wasn't reported back to the board.
So I'll point out that we have a committee that could have met with these developers to brainstorm. We have that committee. It is a standing committee. No one serves on that committee because 2 of my colleagues voted against 2 of us serving on that committee. That would have been the logical place for this communication to have happened. And I would like to just point that out.
I don't disagree with you, and that's not the purpose of this, but is to point out to you that each one of you can get a call from someone that wants to
Sure.
meet with you, and our committees don't control whether you meet with them or not, provided the meeting doesn't occur more, that doesn't involve more than a majority of the board. But for example, if the call were to come into GM Gumpel relative to a meeting regarding the development, I could see that as being different, and he would have directed that to a committee versus picking 2 board members to direct it to. But that's not what occurred here. The request was to meet with an elected, and I think it gets difficult and probably unconstitutional for us to try to control directors meeting with the request of a constituent.
if the board has comfort level to provide the general manager direction, you guys are my bosses, so that direction will be followed. So if that's a level, or if you prefer a policy that provides the general manager direction on reporting out, either way, it's going to get followed.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I would like to see that accomplished without doing a policy, just having a consensus, directing the general manager that if there is a type of meeting like this, to report back to the board what took place at the meeting.
I would agree with that, and I would also add that if the meeting is originating from someone who has business before the board, that it is going to involve staff time, it should go through staff. That doesn't preclude any of us from meeting with anyone, but it does preclude staff resources from getting involved in something like this at a late stage and being put in an awkward situation, which is what happened here as well. So I would say if it is a group, if it is an individual that has, I mean, and this group has business before the board. It's been ongoing for years. And the intent is to have staff and board members in a meeting. That request should originate with staff. And then perhaps more than one of us want to attend. Maybe it should be open to all of us.
Well, just to play this out, if that would, if one of you got a request from a developer or a constituent or interest group for a meeting that they wanted district staff to attend, then the practice would be you would direct the general manager to schedule that meeting, is what you're saying. And you can't open that meeting up to less than a majority, meaning only 2 of you could go to a meeting involving district staff and district business without it being a violation of a Brown Act.
I think that there's another way. I appreciate what you're saying, and I get it, but the other alternative would be if I got a request, then I tell that person, you have to call, if you want staff there, you've got to call staff. You have to call staff. You, constituent person, you must call staff. That way, if the idea is they want staff present, then it originates with staff, not me coordinating the logistics.
No, I think you and I are saying the same thing. But if you got the request, you'd direct that request to Jim.
No, I would
Compel.
not. I would redirect it back to the person and say, you, developer, if you want to have a meeting with board members and staff, you have to call staff, not me be the middleman.
Well, why not? Why not you being the middleman? If a developer calls me and wants to have a meeting with the general manager, he knows that I can get to the general manager far more quickly than a developer. So I would call the GM and say, hey, I've got a developer who wants to meet, talk about something. We would meet. As opposed to telling the developer, you go ahead, you call it. I've done that too. You call the general manager. I don't want to be involved. But on occasion, they've asked me to call the general manager, set up a meeting. Now, I don't think we've had that happen. This particular meeting, I don't actually know how we got to General Manager Compel. If it was Mike or you or the developer maybe called him. You know how we got that meeting?
Yes, you requested.
Oh, okay. Well, then it was me. So then I requested it, and there you go. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
So I requested it, and we had a meeting. I don't see the harm in that. I think the issue is that now that we know, we will ensure that after a meeting such as that, we will have a report back to the board as to that meeting took place, so that everybody's even, Steven, not out of concern about skullduggery of some kind or negotiating of some kind, just that there was a meeting, and that should solve it.
I guess I just feel like, I think in this particular case, we have someone who wasn't getting what they wanted, and they asked several times, and then they chose to lean on board members to try to pressure staff.
No, that was not what happened. There was no pressure, no leaning on. It was just a mere request.
They just,
First
they
came
invited
from
you
Mike's-
because they were giving out cookies? Like, why did they, like?
Well, because Mike Sinella knows us. Mike called me, and first we had the meeting, then we had a meeting with staff, and we aired the opportunities and possibilities, and we were left, the staff initiated and told the developer, here's the two solutions, with a potential, if you got the city involved and approved, maybe the storage. That was all we did, and then it went on further to, as you heard from the report, the city said no. So I don't think there was any harm, any foul, except now we know we need to put a report together and let the rest of the board know that that took place. And that will solve it. Why don't they make it any more difficult than that?
Any other comments?
I agree with that.
Okay, it looks like we are not doing a policy, but we will have a practice. If folks meet with, I'm not sure what we have decided, but
I'll try giving a stab at the practice, and you can see if the board agrees as far as consensus. So if staff meets with any board member and an outside constituent, outside consultant, outside developer, basically, utilizing staff as a resource with a board member present, the general manager will provide a report at the earliest convenience, usually at the GM update, but if that isn't convenient, then he'll provide a email report out for board consumption, in which the board could obviously ask follow-up questions or bring it up as additional items at a future board meeting.
My only comment is that it should be an informational item if it's sent to the board, not requesting any input from the board, because you'll be potentially violating a Serial Brown Act issue
Right.
by taking input from the board. So if you're going to send out information outside of a public meeting, it simply just needs to be an informational item sent to the board. This happened, end of it.
Agree, it'll just be, here's the events, almost like a minutes and for board consumption only and information.
Perfect.
okay, thank you. This is not sitting well with me. I'm not supportive of this, but my colleagues are. I'm not supportive of folks leaning on the influence of the politicians. I'm not comfortable with that, and that appears to be what has happened here. It is not, I know it happens, but it is not, it's not, it doesn't sit well with me, especially if they have business before the board, especially if they have tried several times to have a workaround and a special exception done for them. To then go to the politicians and lean on them, it doesn't sit well with me. So I'm in the minority here, but that's my opinion. Okay,
Yeah,
moving on.
I just as a reminder, that the Levine Act is now in place. I know that's not what we're talking about, but that's monetary influence on politicians. It's pay to play, and that's how the legislature has defined the limits relative to, the political realm, where you're all subject to influence by outsiders. But there are limits. If you receive more than, I think, 250, but I'll have to send it to you again, from any individual, if an application is in front of us, you cannot participate, you can't influence, you can't be involved in anything relative to that applicant's permit in front of us. It comes up a lot in cities. It doesn't come up here very often. But
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports. General Manager Gumpel.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just only have a couple items. October 23rd will be night work on San Marcos Boulevard and Rancho Santa Fe Road. The Water Academy is tomorrow, so I encourage all board members to attend. We'll have some time for any board member who's in attendance around 8:30, 8:45-ish, maybe it'll slip to about 9 o'clock actually, to address the crowd. We have 45 people confirmed, and then there'll also be an opportunity for board members and staff to mingle with constituents, our customers, during lunchtime, which lunchtime will be approximately 12 o'clock. No bus tour this time due to construction activities. However, it allowed us to increase the number of people from roughly 30 to 45, and we'll be having more of an open house event. And another bit of good news is we got confirmation that we are getting the District of Distinction. I was able to complete my CSDA training. So it was a 2-day training that to get that done, and that qualified us for District of Distinction. And I think, well, when it's official, we'll have at least a little presentation. Chris will be here, so to take a picture with the board and hopefully a nice plaque. So,
Great.
so that concludes my report.
Thank you, and congratulations. The District of Distinction Award is only awarded to 2% of special districts. I learned that today at the Water Academy.
I did not know that.
Yes. Okay, District Legal Counsel Gilpin.
I have no report. I've always thought of you as a 1%er, but it's all right.
Yikes.
I'm taking that as a compliment.
Okay, San Diego County Water Authority.
Yeah, the October regular board meeting is next week on the 24th, and otherwise I don't have a report.
Okay, thank you. Encino Wastewater.
We had no capital campaign committee, and the board meeting is later this month.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to talk about the ad hoc committee as well?
Oh, yes. The ad hoc committee for the health side is moving at a snail's pace. But we knew that going in, and we are in the last 90 days. I think December 17th, day after my birthday, we'll give you a nice birthday surprise that we will be through the process of identifying this as surplus property. Then we can begin to determine which way we want to go. And that will be information for the total board, full transparency, how many ways we can do this. In the meantime, we have asked our consultant, Rick Gidding, to look at assessors? Appraisers to determine what a lease program would look like for so many units and so many units over so many periods of time. And that'll give us a basis for some decisions coming up. I think, can I share the decisions or should I wait?
Probably wait for now.
Okay, I'll wait, based on general manager's report. Not that many, but I'll wait. Okay, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I think it's, I think you and I are both aligned in that committee that we want revenue for the district.
Yes.
And we want
Yes, it's gonna be-
continuous revenue for the district,
Oh,
so.
it's gonna be magnificent. Award-winning.
Award-winning, great. Okay, thank you. I'll report, we're moving on to standing committees. I'll report out for the P3. I want to thank Denise and Bridget for putting together the employee handbook and walking us through that. It has been a lot of work. I know that it has been a lot of work, and we're getting there, so thank you for presenting that. The joint letter with San Marcos Fire highlighting the helipod has been signed, and we are planning a rollout to be determined.
Yes, to be determined, but we may be providing some of that information during the Water Academy.
Great, great. That's great news. And then finally, the Water Academy tomorrow, and I believe many of us are attending. So that's it for P3, other standing committees. Okay, moving on to other business, director's comments, future agenda items.
What about conferences?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Conferences?
Yesterday, I attended the CAWA lunch. San Diego Taxpayers Association was there to present, looking for feedback so that they can make sure that everyone is getting all the information about what's going on in the taxing world. And then San Diego One Water made a very big presentation about what they're doing and where they're going and what they've been doing. They're in the process of building the 30 million gallon a day plant, finishing that up. They're going to move on to a $69 million plant at a cost of 1.9 billion? 1.9 billion, B, Lordy.
1-1, not 1-9, 1-1.
Oh, excuse me, it's gonna be cheap
But it's
then.
still,
Oh,
it's still a
look at
big
that
number.
discount.
Pocket change.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting to me was that we're getting some of these new resources put online. We're thinking about one here at Vallecitos, and Cena is thinking about one there. I don't know who else is, I know Padre Dam has one. So perhaps we can gather these things in place, create more resources, eliminate buying water through Metropolitan, the water authority back to us, so maybe we can save some money up in the future. We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Will it be cheaper than desal water?
Well, wouldn't anything be cheaper?
Yeah.
3,200 an acre foot, Lordy B, I
It's
don't
going to
remember
fo-
that
It's
being
going to
part of the
4,000.
presentation.
It'll be 4,000
Closer to
pretty
4.
soon.
Yeah. January, oh, good. Lord have mercy. Isn't that more than twice what we, for ours?
Desal rate is a little less than double the regular
Okay.
treated water rate.
All right, well, still, it's, okay, fine. All right,
I will ask them at the Water Academy how the price of desal can come down. What can happen to make the price of desal come down? That's on my list of questions to
luck with
ask.
that.
good luck.
No, I'm just going to keep asking. I'll keep asking.
Got a clear environmental permit.
Okay. All right, other conferences, attendance? Yes.
This morning I attended, along with Director Pennick, the San Marcos Creek Project opening ribbon cutting, and it was a phenomenal event. It was wonderful to see that project come to fruition, stop the flooding of those areas, as well as provide over 1 mile loop of exercise, as well as park for the kids. Just a wonderful open area in our community here, so very excited for that. And anything to add to that, Director Penn?
No, you hit it.
It's a wonderful event.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other meetings, conferences, or seminars? Okay, moving on to other business. Future agenda items or director's comments? Yes.
Recently, on the news, there has been concern for fluoride in our water has been brought up again. And given this may have some liability in the future concerning the district, I would like to add an agenda item to discuss in the future.
I'm sorry, I missed what the discussion would be.
The discussion would be suggesting an opinion to our water providers on likely having the same discussion but at a higher level on fluoride in our water.
I'll second
Fluoride.
that request.
Correct.
Oh, that's a good one, yes.
Are you asking for sort of an educational item or removal or add additions or what?
To render an opinion to our water providers to share, to have a similar discussion at a higher level. So if the outcome here would be that we all agree after hearing information from recent studies, then our representative on the board for that organization should share that opinion and see if there's an appetite for that.
For San Diego County Water Authority?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, yes, all right, and we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I guess we will be having a topic of discussion of fluoride in the water. Great. Any other future agenda items? Okay, any other comments? So I just have a couple. I want to thank the staff for hosting the ductile iron pipe visit, and thank you for your patience with all of my questions. It was fascinating. It truly was fascinating, and the level of detail, and also just the brute force work and strength involved to put the pipe in, to put the to reroute the water. I was really impressed with that. I also want to thank the residents because being on site, I was able to witness firsthand the disruption of folks' routine, their water, in some cases their yards, their streets. So to the residents of San Alejo, thank you for your patience. I've reached out a number of times on social media for feedback. So once I have that feedback, I will pass it on, and we can learn, because That's not the only ductile iron pipe that we have in San Marcos. So, great. Anything else? All right. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Okay.